I was born in Paris, avenue de la République, near la place de la République. And it was a very interesting apartment because we had a cemetery called Le Père Lachaise. And Le Père Lachaise was all the famous people were buried there, you see. And each time on the balcony, I could watch the most wonderful funerals. You've never seen funerals like that, you see. And when you say we are all equal in death, it is not true. Because the very rich people had marvelous coffin with pompons, and you've no idea.
Pompons on the horses.
Yes.
Oh,
On the horses.
oh yes. And then the most marvelous was when a military or a general died. Oh, it was beautiful. I remember the soldiers being dressed in blue and white, like you know the soldier you see in the Foreign Legion.
Oh, yes.
That's it. And then I had a cottage. And then when I went to sleep the first night, I woke up and screamed. And my husband said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I saw a man in the electric, in the
Beam.
the electric, what you call it?
Switch?
Switch, in the switch. And he was dressed like a loup de mer. He had a casquette, a red foulard, a red tie, and a navy suit. And he was looking at me. And my husband said, "You're going crazy." And he said, "No, I don't think you are crazy, because you don't understand. The oak beams of that cottage, which is 1,200 and something, was made with the
Ships.
the ship, the audio. So I'm not surprised something happened like that.
Was this when you were married? Were you married in
Oh,
France?
yeah. No, I was married in France,
You
yes.
were married in France, and then how'd you get to England? And tell about your husband a little bit.
How I met my husband?
How you got to England?
And this husband is your father, right?
Yeah.
This husband is my father. I didn't know so.
Well, you could have been married a couple times. You could have been married a couple times.
I went to England and I found that England was a very cold country. The people very,
Austria.
yes, you were what you call une étrangère, a foreigner, you see. And they were not friendly, not friendly at all. And the food was ghastly. I've never tasted anything so awful. They used to have a soup which I dislike intensely.
Mulligatawny.
It was the Heinz tomato soup. And it had sweet in it. Oh, it was ghastly.
Did you cook French cuisine?
Always, I always cook.
Tell him a little of what you cooked.
What I cook?
Yeah.
Soufflé?
A soufflé, I make
Cheese?
cheese soufflé, a fish soufflé, chocolate soufflé, I make omelette with tomato sauce. I make the fish like in a shell, like coquille Saint-Jacques,
And œuf à la neige.
and œuf à la
And
neige,
chocolate mousse?
and
Mousse au
chocolate,
chocolat.
Huh?
Mousse au chocolat.
mousse au chocolat.
Meringue chantilly.
I made a lot of things, but now I don't cook. I am going to seed. It's true, I am going to seed. I just realized I don't know how I did it. I could entertain 20 people, cook for 30 didn't matter.
You had two little girls.
Oh, yes,
Oh, I know.
had
You
two
had a
little
sister.
girls.
I have a sister.
Oh, I didn't know. Still living in England?
Yes, she's
Yes.
a concert pianist.
Oh, I never
Yes.
knew that.
And Mommy composes music herself.
Let's talk about, I heard your tapes the last
No.
time. Very
Yes.
I'm gonna make a quick hand.
Why don't you play for about 5 minutes, Sharon?
Do you
Yeah.
have one handy?
Yes,
Go ahead.
not the tape, just sit
Oh,
down.
she can play it.
Yes,
You can
Okay.
still play?
I can still play?
Yes, of course.
I
Play
heard
a
you this
little
morning.
bit.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
I cannot remember anything. My memory has gone.
You
I
rem-
tell you how it has gone. Suddenly, one night, I saw, it's true, I saw my brain. Someone had taken my brain on a silver platter.
At least you
And I
said
tell
that
you
one.
why I
Yeah,
saw my
elegant,
brain, because I
elegant
know
brain.
what the brain looks like. My mother used to give us calf's brain, you see. And suddenly I saw my brain like that. And it was an obsession. I've been having that obsession for a long time.
Now, I want you to play. Play here.
Can you play a little bit so he
Yeah.
can get the flavor? She
I
composed
don't know.
all the music by
But she
herself.
plays, yes.
Uh-huh. I want you to get in this too.
I don't know. I don't know if I can remember anything for the moment. I don't know. I'm in my funny mood.
We'll see.
Don't remember, just play.
Just play the way you played this morning.
That's
I'm
right.
gonna get on the other side.
There we are. Excellent.
Now, tell them that was no other composer but you.
You wrote that?
That's your own?
That's very
She
pretty, and you played it very pretty
She-
too.
She does, well, she composes her own
Yeah,
music.
that's. Do you have another piece?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
That's right.
who are very conservative and have money. I don't think I will.
Oh, it's
Oh,
very
just-
good.
I just love, it's just that she has always, I found her so interesting because one, she has the musical brain, the brain that you saw, but also she's in
Did you
touch.
see that part of your brain on the platter too?
She's in touch. It's not the brain. That's exactly it. It's in.
No, this is a thing which I will tell you the truth. I had a piano in France, and my brother used that piano to compose because he used to write or anything. And my piano came back. It was a Bechstein. And I said, if it is true that the spirit comes back, I will be able to compose. And I sat down and I play a funeral march. And I never heard it before, and it's very sad. And I don't like to play it because it's too sad. It
Yeah.
reminds me of my brother, that's why. you see.
Yeah.
So that's my story. I don't know how it came, but it's natural, that's all.
She's always been in touch with ESP or whatever you call it, the spirit world. You've
Yes,
always
yeah.
intuitively has had those kinds of feelings for what do you
Oh
call
yes, oh yes, yes, yes. I believe in spiritualism. I believe that when you leave this world, some people had more, how could I say, I can't find the word, you know, they have a character. Some people are stronger than others. The people who are stronger come back. But the people who are not strong don't come back. Their spirit are still living. And it's
it?
true.
But you believe that. I know
And it's
that.
true.
It's right along.
That's all I can tell you. I am a weird person. And nothing pleases me. And even if you take me to the best restaurant, I think the food is ghastly. I've never tasted anything, and I think the Americans are the sweetest people on earth, hospitable, very kind. But the food, God help me.
Well, I'm expecting when I get to France, I'm going to Provence, and I'm expecting very good food. On
You
your
will,
end.
but you'll have garlic galore, and I don't like.
Oh, I like garlic.
My husband didn't like garlic.
Can you go to the restaurants that were in that book when you're in Provence?
Well,
I don't know how I will come out. It must be terrible.
Oh, that was very nice. That was a very nice piece, actually.
a beautiful.
It was beautiful. That's not the funeral march.
She's, no.
No, that's nice.
It's sad.
That's the first one. This is the first one she ever played. Doesn't resemble at all.
That's my first one.
That's
That's
just
very nice.
very sad. I want the happy part. I want him to get her to her.
Turn her on.
Very
I
nice.
want Monica to get Monica to tell you about her background, all her training, her
Yes.
école de musique.
Yes. She became a concert pianist, but she never ever knew how to compose, nor was she trained in composition. And did she tell you how she first started to play?
Through the piano?
Through Uncle
The
Ray?
brother.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, this just arrived, and it comes through her fingers. It's not in her head.
Oh, now it is my head.
It has changed. But when she first did it, she just sat down, and it all came out.
It all flowed.
Flowed. Not
Wow.
a wrong note, not wrong harmony. Everything flowed. And it's been like that ever since, except now she gets it a little more in her head.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mozart also, and Beethoven, always composed at the piano first.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them saw it all in their head and just wrote down all this complicated music of every instrument without hearing it. But maybe they heard it in their head, but they saw the patterns of the orchestra. And so there are different ways, obviously, to compose. But this is peculiar because she never learned anything
Wow.
to do with composition.
And when did you first start playing? How old were you?
How old were you when you first started playing, when you first took lessons?
Oh, 6 years old.
Oh, it's very, very
Oh,
young.
Very young.
I
Yeah.
had a very difficult teacher.
Mm.
And explain how you were not able to play, you were not allowed to play. You
Oh,
had
I was
to do
not allowed to
solfege.
play, only solfege. She used to make us sing, and she was such a good pianist, you know, the accompaniment was first class, that instead of singing, you would listen to our accompaniment, and she was furious.
Mhm.
She said, now you sing. And that's how it came. But I had never had, I played it in front of Kentner, and Kentner couldn't believe that I didn't have any harmony lesson. He said, you can't compose like that if you don't know anything about harmony. And I know nothing about harmony.
Mm-hmm.
But the children were talented too, and
Evelyn is a
and
concert
you've had
pianist.
a very interesting life, all of you. He was RAF, but tell a little bit about being in
Well, I don't
England
want to
during
take
the
up
war.
all your...
No,
We
take us. I have
oh,
plenty.
he
It tapes
loves
very
it.
cheap. It's
He
very
loves
cheap, and this is what I like. This is what I like.
This is what he likes.
It's not like old movies that used to be expensive. This is very cheap.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I was worried that we were
No.
eating up all your...
No, no.
Good.
I have 2 hours on this tape, and I just put one in.
Oh,
So
that's
And
good.
he was
yeah.
Well, Mike, when I was 15
Mhm.
and my sister was 11, we lived in London, of course,
Mhm.
the war started. And my father didn't want 2 Jewish children to be in London where we thought Hitler was going to invade and was very imminently going to come across the channel. He knew that he had to put us into safety.
Mhm.
So he happened to know very vaguely a rabbi and his family who stopped by in his office and said, I'm going to Canada. And this was just before all the bombings and everything. This was the beginning of the war. And my father said, do you mind taking my 2 children? So he took us. And we lived in Montreal for 4 years.
Mhm.
And it would take at least 3 tapes to tell you what happened in Montreal, good things,
Mhm.
except that the rabbi deserted us,
Oh.
and we had to find a home. And
You
I
just you and your sister by
My
yourselves.
sister, yes, they
How
left
was
us.
it leaving your parents
Well-
before you left? Was it frightening for you?
No,
Did you
this
cry?
is the strange thing. We cried, yes, but I don't think we really knew
Mhm.
who would have known what the war was going to bring, what it was going to be like, and we didn't think about how long it would be before we saw our parents again. We weren't frightened.
Now, Monica has always had a
Quite
very
strange.
positive outlook on life.
Mhm.
And in fact, when the rabbi deserted them and left them in this apartment without any
Money?
hope or money or anything, Monica had never lost faith. She on her own, she found someone, some lovely people whom she had met before.
through school.
Wow. And how old were you at that point?
I was
17.
only about 17, and,
Wow.
and my sister was 13.
So you had to take care of her.
Yes, I
Yeah.
did. So.
And were you able to
fortunately-
call your parents?
No. In
Yeah.
those days, they couldn't send very much money
No.
to the rabbi.
Yeah.
Not allowed.
There was no communication except
Wow.
by little airmail. They had airmails which they condensed into little tiny things in order to send them overseas. Things
I
were
still got
very
them.
bad. This was at
Yeah.
the time of the Battle of Britain, and things were
Oh, the
appalling.
Battle of Britain.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it. I was playing golf with my husband, and I've never seen so many planes and machine guns. And my husband said, "Let's take cover because we are going to get it."
And where did you
I
go? Was there an underground shelter there?
No, I was playing golf in the country where I had my cottage.
So where did you go?
We took cover in the house of golf course, you know,
Yes.
the house. But it was terrible. So many planes you've never seen. There was a real battle, and you could see the plane going in flame. Oh, it was a horrible thing.
So she witnessed the Battle of
Mhm.
Britain.
Yes.
Never
Wow.
never
History?
in the course of history have so many owed so much to so few. And that was
Oh,
It's
when-
true.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, the RAF saved the world.
It
because
is the RAF.
It gave
Of course.
America time to arm.
So how did you meet this dashing
Oh, well, I have to
RAF?
finish this.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so you were-
Canada. So here we are, stranded in an empty house, and we went to school that day. See, the rabbi had moved to the west. He was hounded out of Montreal. That's where we were.
Because he was a
Montreal.
crook.
Because he was a crook,
Mm.
and he had to find another congregation who didn't know anything about this,
Wow.
and they took him in. And he did cable. We could cable to London. He cabled my father, would you like me to take them out to the west coast? And my father cabled back, no, because this was the time of Pearl
Pearl
Harbor.
Mm.
And it would have been another scene of war. He
Wow.
was frightened. He didn't want us to go out there. So he just left us stranded without any money in this empty house, which was going to be taken over soon by people who were moving in. So we came back from school, the two of us, and wanted our lunch. And here were some great, big, fat, huge people, very, very tall, and their name was after, and there were packing boxes all over the place. And we said, may we have our lunch, please? And she said, who are you? So we said, we live here. She said, you don't. I've just moved in. The whole family's moved in. And I can't give you lunch because I'm very busy moving in. So some very dear friends of the rabbi saved our lives and took us in.
Wow.
And we lived for 2 years with them. They were very, very, very poor. And of course, Mommy and Daddy were not able to send anything but something like $20 for the
Yes.
two of us.
And
The
clothes.
British government wouldn't.
Mhm.
But they took us in and fed us and looked after us and gave us tender, loving care. They were wonderful people. And so I came home just at the time of D-Day. Our parents were able to bring us home, thank God.
Mhm.
And we found them safe and well.
Yes, but they
And,
were bombing now.
The doodle bugs started.
Oh.
What's doodlebug?
Doodle bugs are those planes with no pilots,
Mhm.
which the Germans, it was a secret weapon brought
Fizzy.
out at the end of the war almost, and they would hover, they'd come over a city or or a village,
And would
when
stop.
you heard it conk out, you know that it would explode and kill people.
But it ran out of fuel. They
They
just
were-
Wow.
arranged for
They
them to have
sent them
enough
to
fuel
different
London.
areas.
and then to descend on London.
Yeah.
And they just exploded,
each
and there was
carried-
no pilot.
They each carried a ton of explosive.
And we arrived that night when the very first doodlebug, we called them doodlebug, And,
Such like an innocent name for what they are.
yeah, well, the British have a way
Like
of
the Scott
understating things.
Yeah.
You see. So anyway, my parents and I, we all sat up because it was an air raid warning. And this was our first experience of an air raid because as children we'd been sent away. And we were very nervous. And we were in the apartment and not a sign. No guns,
Look at
no aeroplanes, no bombs, nothing. And when the morning came, they sounded the all clear. And they were just people, Britain was just as amazed as we were that they didn't realize that this new weapon was coming over. That night, they thought it was going to be another usual
Yeah.
air raid. So anyway, a few months later, Leslie was had arrived from being on the Queen Mary, the doctor on the Queen Mary. He arrived in London, and his mother had always said to him, "I want you to look up the daughter of a friend of mine who lives in London." Now Leslie is still, but was at that time rather dashing in his RAF uniform, and he had quite as many girlfriends as he wished. And he didn't want to bother with this old lady's daughter. And he kept putting it off. He never visited her. But this friend's daughter was, in fact, a very dear friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I phoned her that night, and I said, "I'm going to bring you your birthday present." And I was working for the war effort. And she said, "Monica, before you do," she was in Canada with me, by the way.
So you're how old at this point? Like
I was
19? Okay.
Exactly, yes. And we had both been in the rabbi's house. She was the rabbi's niece. She came
Oh.
later.
Okay.
Okay, so we were very dear. We were best friends. Her name was Pat. And she said, "Monica, wash your face and change your dress because we've got 2 young men coming to visit me."
Mm-hmm.
So I had tickets for the Albert Hall, the prom concerts, to see Sibelius. We lived right near to the Albert Hall. But I didn't. Instead, I took Pat her birthday present, and I did wash my face. And Leslie and I met, and it really was love at first sight. And 3 months later, we were married.
Wow, that's
It
it?
was very fast, yes. Yeah. And that's it. And here I
the
am
most
in the streets.
remarkable thing, as far as I'm concerned, I knew this girl for 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her to marry me, and she finally did marry me. And we've lived together in a fair amount of success for 47 years.
A normally reasonable amount.
A normal, reasonable amount, yes.
Leslie, you were Irish originally. You were
Sure.
born in Ireland.
Sure, that's right.
But she was born French. She was in
And I-
English.
Half
and
French,
you were,
yes.
and
Yeah.
you can still hear.
And
They've
I saw
all
the-
retained their accents.
Careful.
I saw the 1914 war.
Wow.
It was terrible too.
Yeah. How did you move to England?
How did you come to England?
How did you meet Richard?
Because
Daddy, in France, I met some English people,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's where I met my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And he was what? He was also a professional. What
No,
was
he was a barrister,
a barrister.
And then later on he became a QC,
QC.
Queen's Counsel.
Mm-hmm.
Queen Counsel,
What
and
was-
then after
and
a recorder.
What's the difference? What's the difference between a barrister and a queen's
A
counsel?
Queen's Counsel has been appointed by the Queen. The legal section of London is not on politics, but on merit. And
judges,
they
judges are not
everybody,
elected.
everybody is judged by their performance in the court and out of the court by a group of rather aged gentlemen who are called benchers, who are very, very experienced officials of the legal system. And they're the ones that find the men who are deserving of appointments. And a QC is a barrister who has been appointed by the Queen to become a Queen's Counsel, and he is like a specialist
Yes.
in
A
medical.
super specialist. There's
Yes.
far fewer QCs than there are specialists
In medicine.
In medicine.
And it's a great honor and it's known in London as taking silk, because instead of wearing black linen heavy robes, you've seen the robes on television, I'm sure, they actually wear silk robes.
Yes,
Taking
and they
silk.
have
And then the
long
wigs
wigs.
change.
White
The wigs change. And the judges are also appointed not politics-wise, but for their merit, what they deserve, for the quality of their legal performance.
Wow. So, what about how much anti-Semitism did you, besides the threat of Hitler?
Yeah.
Well, with you living in France, and then because these were real turbulent times. Maybe not in France, but what were some of the things you saw within?
Anti-Semitism in France.
Oh yes, très antisémite.
Tell them about the school, how you were in the school and you were told to sit separately. You remember?
No, it was my mother.
Your mother, yes.
My mother used to be in a school in the east of France, Nancy. And from one day to another, she had a lovely school where they mixed with the Christian people. And one morning, they were sent to a certain part of the class, the Jewish girls with the Jewish girl and the Christian on the. And the Christians were not allowed to talk to the Jewesses. And my mother had very good friends, and the others, they couldn't believe it. There was a anti-Semitism movement.
Yes, a wave of anti-Semitism.
Oh yes. We suffer very much of that.
It's not so much in London.
Yeah.
It's not overt. It may be now because there are lots of Arabs there. But in the old days, it was more something very, very subtle. And
Gentleman's agreement.
Yeah.
yes,
Le
and
Juif errant.
a Jew in Jewish lawyers often change their names. But my father's name was Levy, and he had worked terribly hard to get where he was, and he wasn't about ever to change his name. He never did. And then they wanted to put up in a very famous old hall in the seat of law in London called the Temple. You'll probably run across it when you read now. The Temple. It's in the center, the heart of the city, where all the lawyers' offices are, and the courts. All the Christian people had their coat of arms, and when my father became a QC,
He had to
actually
have
it was
his
a
coat of arms.
KC. That was when the king was alive. He was made a king's council, but then when the king died, it became a queen's council. And when he became that, they said, we'd like you to give us your coat of arms and we'll put it up in this beautiful hall. And he said, I'm sorry, but I have no coat of arms. And he didn't buy another one. He didn't mess with it.
No, he didn't. They didn't know. He didn't know what to do. He said, after all, I was not a knight, a lord. Or a lord. I came from an ordinary family. I'm sorry, I can't be, in that. And
Little did he know that his granddaughter would eventually become an artistic calligrapher that could have made him a beautiful coat.
Yes.
Touché.
Yes.
Ah, that's wonderful. Yeah. So that's the story of Daddy.
I'd like to lighten
He
the
became-
mood. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'd like to lighten the mood for a moment and just tell you about a poor little tree in a forest in California. And this poor little tree looked up and sees this huge elm tree standing hundreds of feet above him. And he said, Mr. Elm, am I a son of a birch or a son of a beech? And the elm said, I don't know about that, son, but your mother was the finest piece of ash in the forest.
Like that, I don't know if that'll go on.
Yes, how will that go on TV? that's how Mummy came to England,
Mhm.
because Daddy was. Oh, and then he had a very interesting case, which was in Time magazine and Life magazine.
Oh,
Mhm.
yes.
And Dorothy L. Sayers wrote about many of his cases. She sat down in the courts and listened to him conduct his cases, and then she wrote about it in her book.
She was a famous English.
I love
That's a
Dorothy.
familiar
Oh, I'm
name.
sorry,
Yes.
Rebecca
you know,
West.
It's not
It's a
Dorothy
very-
L. Sayers, it's
Rebecca-
Rebecca
Now, what
West.
was her
Oh.
name? I can't remember.
Rebecca West.
Rebecca West. I
Yeah.
sat next to her.
Well-
And she couldn't, she was fascinated by your father.
Yes, and she listened. So the thing is, he had a very nasty case
Mhm.
in which a man dropped all sorts parts
The
of
human
limbs
case.
Mhm.
all over
The
England,
marshes.
Wow.
and he defended him. And
Mhm.
because he, by the way, Daddy never defended anyone unless he totally believed in their innocence.
Mm.
Well, it was a very gory case, and he got him off.
Mhm.
And
7 or 8 years, not off.
oh,
He got him off the murder charge, but he got rid of that 7 or 8 years.
well, then one day the phone rang,
Mhm.
and a man's voice said, "This is Alec Hume," which is the name of the murderer whom he
Mhm.
defended. And he said, I have reported my case. I was guilty. I've given my case to the Daily Mail, which is the rag of London, like
Use the word.
world
Tabloid.
tabloid. And then he said, I'm going to Switzerland. Now, here and in England, you cannot be tried twice for the
Mhm.
same.
Double jeopardy.
Yeah.
Yes, you can't. So habeas corpus too. You can't be tried twice for the same crime.
Mhm.
So he got off scot-free, went to Switzerland,
And killed
murdered
someone.
Every time we hear somebody from Ireland, we always say Leslie, or on the movies.
Double jeopardy, and he left for Switzerland, and
Yes. And then he murdered a lady on the train.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he was caught and
Yeah.
executed and punished.
Wow.
Yeah.
But your father did believe in him.
He believed thoroughly that he was innocent.
Wow, that must have been hard.
It was.
Yeah.
It was terrible when he got that phone call, and all my stories coming out in the tabloid.
The Hume
Yeah.
case.
Yes, and it was written up in, as I said, Time and Life.
Did that? How did he feel about that for months afterwards? Did he?
Mommy will tell you.
How was it afterwards? How did he? How did that?
That man, that Hume,
Uh-huh.
as he appeared, had piercing eyes, blue eyes, and he's very much like a Cardinal Hume.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the same family, but they resemble each other.
But how did Daddy feel after he got the news that Hume had reported everything to the Daily Mail?
Oh, he was very upset about it because it was. He believed him.
Yeah.
I mean, the man was a liar, but he believed him. They were not a case to. You know what I mean? He thought he was innocent. He would
Yeah.
never take a case like that.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough evidence
Mm-hmm.
to incriminate him, and Daddy really believed he was innocent.
Yeah. Wow. That must. Did he still practice law though? He still maintained professional.
yes.
Did he take a leave of absence after that? Okay.
My
Yeah.
father was a rock of Gibraltar, and thank God these things, you know, it upset him terribly, but he continued on.
Right.
You
That's
know.
good. Yeah.
How
The show
old
must
was
go
he
on.
when he
Yeah.
I
died?
think 73.
76.
76.
Mm. I don't remember meeting him. I always met
He
you.
never did because he never came to this.
Oh, okay. You just came by yourself.
Yes.
Okay, because I remember you
You
coming
remember, yes.
from when I was small, like 10, 12. Yeah.
Before
I
that,
remember.
they lived here before we.
Oh, I know, but I remember visiting
remembers.
her. Yeah, since I was
You
a little.
were 10 or 12.
Your brother
Yeah, the
was-
first time.
Your brother was our paper boy, wasn't he?
Right.
And he
Sure.
was too.
Sometimes
for a
I
while,
was, yeah.
Both of them, yes, both of them.
Mhm.
Right. Well, that's, we would
I think
really
we've told
enjoy
you the
that.
whole life history of
No,
everything.
not the whole
Yeah.
life,
Well,
but,
so does Linda
I
go and visit you?
She's coming over in August.
Okay, but do you get to, with her living in Europe, do you get to see her often, or?
Yes, Mummy's been wonderful. She's always had us and Linda and Brenda
Uh-huh.
at the same time.
Oh, that's
in,
nice.
in
Yeah.
London.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
A whole
So.
lot.
I seem not to have the energy. I lost the energy.
Mhm.
I lost the feeling, you know.
The
strength,
motivation.
the motivation.
Mm-hmm.
My life is finished. I don't want to. I would not like it. I'd like to sleep forever. Whenever I wake up in the morning, I said, oh, wasn't it wonderful to sleep and never think or never.
Oh, that's too bad.